Hello, hello, hello. Happy Monday, Monday the 22nd of June. Love it, all the twos, happy days. So welcome, Donna and Cheryl TV, live and loud with you, keeping it real. And this week we've got a brilliant topic all about boundaries. Boundaries. And we love this one, don't we, Cheryl? Because whenever we ask anybody how are your boundaries, they say, I haven't got any.
Literally, like we could probably talk about this every single day for the rest of the year, and we'll just have something to talk about because I think, and a lot of people have said to us over the past 2 years they didn't even know that boundaries was a thing. That's for us, obviously, because we talk about it a lot, but a lot of people have said, I've never even thought about actually having boundaries, that was a thing that you would consider, and neither did I, to be fair, until we started doing this work. I didn't know boundaries was a thing.
I knew about it. They're not easy. And the thing is, often we know about them, but we're quite desensitized to where we have poor boundaries in our life. So this week, we want to talk about some key themes that are really repeat themes with our clients, with our community that we see coming up around relationships, around work, getting real specific with you and hopefully giving you some tangible things that you can go and do differently. And a little while ago in the soul system, I can't remember where you were, Cheryl, but I did like a training session. It was quite a lengthy session, about a good half an hour, 40 minutes, talking about boundaries. And that is in there as a recording. If you want to come and join the soul system, that's in there if you're not already with us. It's lovely to have you, Yvette, Donna, Wendy. Hey, guys. Hey. So we'd love to know for anyone joining us, when we say the word boundaries, what springs to mind? What is the immediate gut reaction that you have about it?
Yeah, because like I say, like Donna said, we're going to be talking about this all week, but we split it out. We always split it out when we talk about it between internal and external boundaries, because it's important to acknowledge and recognize that they're two different things. And your internal boundaries, I want to say more important, but if you haven't got your internal boundaries sorted out, it's likely that that's going to have a domino effect on your external boundaries being weaker than they should be. So I'm just looking at Donna's comment there. My boundaries are 10 foot high at the moment. I've created a bridge, a fortress. All right, because you've gone over the top.
Bridge. And was that a conscious thing, Donna? Was that something that you've created on purpose, or is that a knee-jerk reaction to some external environmental stuff that's been going on for you? I'd love to know a little bit more about that.
Helen's saying the same. You've got a brick wall, but it's breaking down. So what you're saying is, actually, you've gone over higher with the boundaries to the point where it's more of a wall rather than a boundary. So you need to bring those down rather than building them up, which makes sense, because we do that sometimes when we've been hurt or had poor experiences. Then we create these walls so that nobody can penetrate the wall and get into us. But that's not healthy either. So actually, I think that the theme for this week is healthy boundaries. We'll add that to the front.
That's what I was going to say, actually, Cheryl. I think it's worth we're given the definition of what healthy boundaries are. So for me, when I'm describing it to Caleb or to a client, or it's that framework, those lines, those rules of engagement that you have within your relationships, so that you can have give and take relationships, happy, healthy relationships, and feel okay about a certain what you need, and the other people around you feel okay about a certain what they need. So it's those rules of engagement, that framework that you work into, that make you feel good, that make the people working with you feel good, so that you can have real, honest, and open communication. That's how I describe it, Cheryl. I don't know if your take on it's any different.
Yes, I think for external boundaries, definitely. I think internal boundaries is around how you speak to yourself, what's going on in your inner dialogue, how you make yourself feel on a daily basis, how you prioritize yourself versus other people. So a lot around self-care, like just generally looking after yourself, like protecting yourself, not to the point where you've got a fortress or a big brick wall, but actually not like, if I think back to like being teen and 20s, like certain situations that I would put myself in were absolutely ridiculous. Like which I chose to do at the time. So I put myself in that situation by making certain decisions to be in that situation because I didn't have boundaries in place with myself. Where if they were stronger, I wouldn't have allowed that. I wouldn't have put myself there. So, yeah. Thank you, Donna. No boundaries since COVID, overkill and creating a safe wall. Yeah, we like safe walls.
Yeah, Donna's just saying since COVID, it's that you are creating almost a fortress for your family, aren't you? I think it's something we've all done as part of this experience. It's got really overprotective in some cases about the family, but for very good reason. I know I certainly have. I still haven't been in a shop, so yeah, agreed, Cheryl. So really what we want to talk to you about over the course of this week is what those boundaries look like to you, and to get you tuning into where your boundaries are working well for you, maybe where they need some adjustment, maybe where they need some foundations building, and breaking that down into different areas of your life. But today we really want to start with those internal boundaries, because as Cheryl said, if you are not really respectful of yourself, if you don't have that framework and rules of engagement that you adhere to for yourself, it can be really, really challenging and really difficult to then carry that through into relationships outside of yourself. And what we often see happening is two things, isn't it, Cheryl? We either have absolutely no boundaries at all sometimes with people, and we struggle to do it because we don't have them with ourselves. Or actually, if we don't have them with ourselves, we can actually be quite aggressive when people don't do that, because we're judging them for actually not doing what we know we should be doing, but have never quite gotten around to. So it plays out in different ways.
And then a lot of the time, with the second point Donna's just said, we don't know when we were judging others for having the boundaries and being quite aggressive with them, but we don't know why we're doing that, because we haven't realised at that point that it's triggering some kind of insecurity within us. So, like, if I think about like when Holly was growing up, so I became a mum at the age of 25, and I was quite, say, immature for 25, and I got pregnant with Holly, and then obviously Holly came, and I just turned into a mum, as you do. You haven't got a choice. But I was a single mum for most of our upbringing until she was like 11, and Wendy talked about this in the Soul System, but I was like trying to be mum and dad. So I was like trying to play the mum role and then the dad role. And then I was then overcompensating because our dad was in and out, and when he was in, hadn't any emotional, wasn't adding to it, basically.
He wasn't adding to the picture.
Yes. So I was then trying to do mum and dad and the discipline and making sure that I worked hard and then earned some money so I had a nice life. So the boundaries that I set there were a bit all over the place, because I was, we talked about wearing masks last week. I was trying to wear the different masks rather than just feeling okay in myself. So that obviously, because I was then feeling insecure about the fact that I was a bit all over the shop, then you then start to question yourself. So your internal boundaries about how you speak to yourself and how you treat yourself. And, it's kind of a bit of a, you look and you think, oh, I'm not doing that great. So then you start to then not be kind to yourself. So it's like this cycle that's going on. And then that's then difficult to have strong external boundaries when I'm feeling on the internal boundaries that I'm a bit all over the shop myself about how I feel about being a parent. Yeah. Then it goes a bit wrong with the kids. Yeah. So I don't know if anyone resonates with that who has children.
Be interesting to say. Mel's just saying she's got very bad boundaries at work. I'll just put one up. Gets pulled around by everyone else's demands and often let my working day leak into my personal time, bad practice. And we're definitely going to be spending some time specifically on that subject, Mel, this week, because I think it's a really, really important one. I know for me, my internal boundaries were, so after my first, well, obviously during my first marriage, internal boundaries were not good because it was a very abusive relationship. So what then happened was I did what a lot of us do when I came out of that. I built the fortress, nobody shall pass, It was like, it had to be like the world's team of strong men to get over it, you know what I mean? And it was, for me, then meeting people, you know, like Neil wasn't the first relationship I had, but he was one of the first long-term relationships I had after that. And he would tell you at the time, it was like you had to bring the dragon slayer in, you know, because I was so well guarded, because I didn't want to be hurt again. And I think that's really, it's quite common. But equally, I think it was because all of these internal boundaries, so all this self-discovery I was doing, you know my values, know what I wanted, know all the rest of it, I was still sort of in its infancy with that, learning how to be nice to myself. So it was a little bit like, you know, when you're on a diet or you're not drinking for a month, like the last thing you want to do is go around where there's nice food and lots of alcohol, because you know that you haven't quite cemented the skill yet of being strong. And I think I met Neil quite early on in that journey, and I was so scared that at the first test of whether or not my boundaries were any good, that I would just fall at the first. So what you tend to do is like, woof, you know, you have these walls up because you're scared of, you don't trust yourself. You don't trust yourself with your boundaries, I guess.
That's a bit, because you haven't established those for yourself yet. You haven't got them in place internally yet, so therefore, how can you then know?
I couldn't force them if he reached them, and I didn't want to go back to where I was. So you do the playing it through and catastrophizing it, don't you? What if he's like the last one and I'm not strong enough yet? And So really, I would say the first good few years of our relationship, working on those internal boundaries and actually softening them so that I was comfortable and trusted myself with them, was a big part of how our relationship was playing out.
Definitely. And I think Yvette's just saying, to the detriment of her morning practice exercise and relationships. Because you haven't got the really strong internal boundaries, then that's the first thing to go, isn't it? Your self-care, your morning routine, you know, it's the first thing. But when you've got really strong internal boundaries, it's just an absolute no of like, literally, this is what's important to me today, and this is what I'm going to be doing. And that's when we learn that word, and we'll probably do a separate week on the word no. 2 words need the whole worth of week's TV. But like we then, instead of saying yes to ourselves, we say no to ourselves and yes to something else when we really don't feel happy or comfortable about it, and to the detriment of ourselves, because we don't feel strong enough or good enough or worthy enough or deserved enough, whatever it is that's lurking there, to actually just go, oh, no, this is like for me, my me time, whatever it is that it's regarding.
And this isn't about not caring what other people think. It's not about not giving 2 tosses if that fits in with your husband or your business partner or whatever. But it's like, for example, Cheryl's got very strong boundaries on how she likes to start a day. I've got strong boundaries about how I like to spend my weekends, how I like it sort of work my day as well. So it's about understanding that and respecting that with a partner, whether that's a business partner, a work partner. And yes, of course, sometimes there's always a dovetail where sometimes there might be a little bit of compromise needed, but it's just about having that strength within you to feel good about making it clear about what it is you need to feel good and what that looks like from the other person, and being okay around claiming that and talking about it openly. And there's no reason why you shouldn't, because unless you're hurting somebody else in the process, it's perfectly reasonable to start talking about what you need to be in optimal condition as a human. I think the problem is that what we tend to see is we think we're not really clear on what it is we need. We know everything that we don't want, and then somebody does something we don't like, and we do get really pissy about it, even though we hadn't actually communicated that they weren't comfortable with that kind of behaviour, or somebody taking time out of our diary that was our sacred time, but we hadn't planned. Do you know what I mean? There's all these kind of blurred lines where we're not just being really clear about what we want and communicating that with the people around us.
Absolutely. Because we think, oh, well, if I say this, I might offend someone, or, you know, there might be... we might feel guilty for saying this is what we want. And it's just about, it literally is about communication, really, getting okay with communicating, like Donna said, what you want. And that's not like hurting somebody else, or it's just, this is how, and it's healthy. That's the word that we keep coming back to. It's healthy.
But
it's very healthy.
But point number 1 is always about your internal communication. Like, what is it that you want? What is it that you want to feel good? So is it that you want to have, an hour to yourself on a morning? Is it that you want to make sure that you're working out? Is it that you want to make sure that you're eating well? Is it that you want to make sure that you're studying and, prioritizing your growth an hour a day? What do you want? What are your internal boundaries? What's the thing that makes you the 3 to 5 rules of engagement for you with yourself that are your non-negotiables and
Absolutely.
how you want to be treated?
Thank you, Lucy. Hi, Lucy.
Hi, Lucy.
Yeah, so you need some alone time, but you had to do it in mansplaining. I like that. Yes. They don't process information the same way as we do we?
Yeah,
but we have to tell them how it's going to benefit them to get the time for us.
And help them think it was their idea. So
Yes.
I love that on my big fat Greek wedding when the women tried to make it like the guy, it was his idea, and then he's like, oh, I've had a great idea. Like, I love that, but sometimes needs must, right?
Yeah. And Helen, sorry, I'm just going to flash up real quick because it hides our face. First got diagnosed, it was taking a lot of time, but in the end, he was asking for support. I felt drained, so I put a boundary in there. Yeah, so you weren't getting to switch off, and he actually understood. So you probably took you a while to build up to that, Helen, where you were thinking, oh, I don't want to, this, that, and the other, and actually, once you had the conversation, yeah, everything was okay.
Yeah,
might not like or love me, yeah, because we're feeling, oh, think I'm lazy, because we feel insecure still in ourselves. This is what it is. We feel like it's going to trigger that, and how we feel about ourselves. So it's about doing the inner work. It's always about doing the inner work first, always.
Yeah. And there is a reason why, just as we're programmed, it's easier for men to have better boundaries. And that's purely because from a thinking first space, women's instinct is to think about how other people will feel about a decision. For a man, generally speaking, how we're wired as men will be just to think about our needs first and what the benefit is to everybody if we get that far. So it can be more challenging for women because you always think about the needs of everybody else before your own.
Absolutely.
As a basic premise. So the first thing we want you to do is to really look at your internal boundaries. Where are they weak? Where are you not really being, I guess, authentic with yourself and in alignment with yourself about what you need? And I'd really invite you to really share that in the soul system as well. If you're part of our community, if you're not getting there, go and share that in the soul system today. We can start a thread about, what your internal boundaries going to be. So what is that deal that you're making with yourself, and get really tuned into that. What are the top two or three things that are non-negotiables that you need to feel good about yourself?
Yeah. So it might be like self-care. It could be, how you talk to yourself, that you're in a dialogue, you're starting to tune in and recognize that actually you're not being very kind to yourself. It could be that you're putting yourself in situations where you don't feel comfortable, like whatever it is, then start to notice, become more aware, because once we're aware, we can then do something about it. And then, we're going to be moving on, I think, to external boundaries as the week goes on, and focus on specific things like relationships, work scenarios. We're going to be covering that in the coming days. We'll stick with internal boundaries today.
Yeah, let's just tune into that. I'm going to start a thread in the soul system. So, guys, if you're not in the soul system, please come over and join us. We'll put that link in your threads as well. Obviously not in the soul system one. But the other thing I think it's really worth us sharing today is around, because a lot of people are struggling with boundaries with work and things like that, rather than waiting. We did the Chaos to Calm Masterclass a little while ago, and in that we talk about how you can start creating those boundaries with work. So we'll pop the link in for that. And then if you haven't already seen that, watch it. If you saw it at the time, it was months ago now, watch it again, because boundaries is a big part of that, and how you set time aside for yourself and separate work. But we're going to be talking about that probably tomorrow or Wednesday. So stay tuned this week, guys.
Yes. Meaty one today.
Yes. So let your friends know, let your colleagues know that we'll be talking about this over the course of this week. I just think it's a lot of this conversation so many of us could benefit from, to be able to communicate our wants and needs better, and then we can perform better and get on with life, rather than worrying about all this kind of stuff about what we say and how we say it and all that crap that gets in the way. Okay?
Absolutely. Have a fabulous rest of the Monday.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Happy Monday. See you tomorrow.
Keep it real.